Good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you uh, from the All Ladies League Manufacturing. This is our fifth edition of the Fireside Chat, and as usual, we've got a very interesting guest today. So, pandemic as is continuing to some extent. Pandemic has taught us a lot of lessons, good lessons, bad lessons. However, as far as All Ladies League manufacturing is concerned, we've kept the speed, we've kept the pace because we are extremely focused on helping women to grow and build their careers with manufacturing. Whether blue collar or white collar doesn't really matter for us. All that we want to do is we want women to realize their full potentials, and we want them to focus, and we want them to keep growing in their careers. That's the most important thing that we are focusing on, and that's part of our mission. And today, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speaker, today's guest. Uh, we have with us amongst today the fireside chat. We have today Michelle Connolly is currently a quality control manager working for the quality control department at PGS Brandon, Canada. Michelle is accountable for running the QC chromatography lab for the release testing of conjugated estrogens, the API for Premarin. Michelle began her career with PGS Brandon in 2007 as a QC chemist, then as a quality assurance specialist in 2014, and a process specialist in 2016. Her leadership experience prior to working at PGS Brandon spans over 15 years in leadership and management positions in the retail and non-profit industry. Additionally, Michelle is a co-chair of the Pfizer Global Supply Women's Mentoring Program that operates throughout US and Canada. And that is where I had a very big opportunity for meeting Michelle. And Michelle holds a BSc degree from Brandon University and an MBA degree from Athabasca University. So, welcome, Michelle, once again to this. And I think I can welcome you to India once again. Virtually, you're visiting India. Thank you for accepting our invitation to speak in this forum, Michelle, because our invitation is extremely, handpicked. We don't call anybody and everybody. When we call, which means that you're very special in terms of your achievements, and you're very special in terms of the potentials that you bring to the table from an executive perspective, and a little more from a women executive who has been there, done that in manufacturing. And I know you, the kind of work you do for Pfizer. And today, Pfizer making it very big in the vaccine space, and everybody is talking about Pfizer. And as a very proud former employee at Pfizer, I walk with my head held very high whenever they say, "Hey, your ex company is doing this." And at this juncture, it's so proud. It's such a proud moment to have you as our guest to speak about your experience, your story, and some of the things that you want to share as maybe do's, maybe don'ts, and what you want to leave us with for the women in manufacturing. Just before, some time back, like 6 months ago, we were looking at doing some work for women in manufacturing. And that's a time, we had a chat with our All Ladies League chairperson, Dr. Harbeen Arora, who's who's our biggest soul sister, I can say. She gave this big opportunity for us to start some focused work, especially for women in manufacturing. And as far as India is concerned, India does not open its gates for women to enter the manufacturing sector. That's a blunt truth. But on the other side, when I interact with a lot of my other friends in industries like a car, an automobile industry, or a pump or a pipe industry, or any of these manufacturing companies, they say that most of their shop floor workers are women nowadays. and they want to hire women because they find it a lot more economically worthwhile to have women in the shop floor because they don't waste much time. They don't have their smoke breaks, or they don't have their regular smoke breaks, if I can say, or they don't take too many breaks out. So the focus is better, the productivity is better, and the passion and the quality that they bring to the table is far better, is what they say. So while that's happening, that's not enough. So we want people like you to come and share your story so we can pick up a few lessons, and we can start talking to the policymakers, to the company heads, to the CEOs about creating space for women so all of them can grow. And there's a good space for both blue and white collar women to grow. So so that's the background that I would like to set for today's conversation, Michelle. And over to you. And could you talk to us about your story in you can introduce yourself if there are any other interesting details other than what I read from your bio. If there's anything interesting that you would like to share, please feel free to do that. And also, please tell us your story and how you got into manufacturing. Over to you, Michelle.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Rajani, for the amazing intro and for inviting me to be part of your program and to speak to these amazing women today. I was really been looking forward to this. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to say that's going to be meaningful and impactful, and hopefully make a difference for some of these women that are listening, or for any of the other viewers that maybe chime in on this. And I guess just to share a little bit more about my background, that isn't something that I necessarily put on my bio, but is very important, and something that we should talk about. Is just my family. So I am a mother of two. I have a 9-year-old son who is on the spectrum, and a 6-year-old daughter who is, absolutely brilliant. But they are a big part of my life. And as I talk about adversity and challenges that I've had to overcome, I can't ignore the elephant in the room, and the fact that raising children and the what they call work-life balance, which truly doesn't exist, is a real part of that challenge, and some of the things I've had to navigate, and things that I've had to do to overcome that. So I would say now, in the world that we're living in the state of a pandemic with COVID-19, has put extra stress on women in any workplace, anywhere with children, or women working at the home with their children, who maybe aren't going to school anymore, homeschooling, different things that are happening. So I don't know around the globe how it's impacted people, but I know that I can guarantee it's added extra pressure to everybody. So my family is just a big part of my background. And then to put a little more perspective, I know you mentioned where I'm working. So I do work at PGS Brandon, which nobody is going to know where that is. So basically, to simplify it, I'm like right in the middle of Canada. So we have like the prairies. So there's, West Coast, Vancouver, and East Coast, and Toronto, and then I'm right in the middle. It's quite a small city. Brandon has around 50,000 people, and our Brandon site here, PGS, has, I would say, under 80 people that work at the site altogether. So yeah, when I first started here in 2007, I had finished my Bachelor of Science, and I had been working in retail management, and I really wanted to make use of my science degree, and get into a lab setting. I was really interested in working more with lab equipment, and I was looking at different things that we could do in Brandon. And to be honest, at the time, it wasn't Pfizer, it was Wyeth, and I had no idea the site was here. I didn't know what they did. I briefly kind of thought what they did here was make birth control pills from horse pee, was what I thought in my 20s. And so when I started here, and I remember coming for the interview and learning a little bit more about it, I realized how impactful this little site really is. And so our site, as you mentioned for my bio, makes the conjugated estrogens, which is the API for Premarin. Premarin has been around for over 75 years, and it's served millions of women around the globe. And every single one of those women that have benefited from our product, that all started here in Brandon. It isn't made anywhere else. So it's quite unique, our manufacturing process. and just the longevity of how long it's been around. And I'm really proud of that. And it makes a big deal to your workday when you can be proud of what you do and passionate about what you do, knowing that it makes a difference. That being said, when I came, as I mentioned, I believe my first interview, I bombed it pretty badly, and I was pretty sure the manager at the time was not going to hire me. And so my first manager here was actually one of my true inspirations and mentors, and somebody that helped pull me up. And his name was Steve Kaiser. He's no longer with the company now. He's moved on. But when I first started here, I was working as a lab analyst, and then I got a permanent position as a chemist. And I remember once I came here and I seen the amazing work that happens in manufacturing and the impact that you can have on people's lives from working in pharmaceuticals, that I didn't want to be anywhere else. So I said to my manager, how can I get your job? I want your job one day. That's where I want to be. And so part of it, I would say, is just speaking up and making it clear what your ambitions are and what you want, and not being afraid to say that. And he was very open to it. And I was worried that having a Bachelor of Science wasn't enough, that I would need to have a PhD, that I would need to have more experience, that the other people here would have a better chance of getting promoted before I would. And he assured me that I had all the science and chemistry background that I would need, and that it just really needs to be more. He said, know the business, know what we do here, know how we manufacture it. It's one thing to test it, but you need to know more about how it's made, where does it go, what is our supply. So he really kind of helped me to open my eyes and broaden what I needed to know, and prevented me from, maybe shooting off in the wrong direction and becoming overqualified with a PhD in chemistry that maybe I wouldn't need for the position that I was gunning for. And then when he was leaving, I remember I was only a couple years in, and he was leaving, and I was quite devastated because he had become such a great leader to me. But he was leaving to get his MBA, and I couldn't understand how somebody could leave work for 2 years and just and go and get a master's in business, and what the drive would be behind that. So once he told me a bit more about it, I started thinking that was something that I wanted to do. However, at the time, I was pregnant, and there was no way I could leave work for a couple of years just to, take my master's in business. So I ended up finding an online program that allowed you to work for your executive MBA while you were working full time. So I decided this was something I wanted to undertake. I had an honest conversation with my husband about it, because I knew that this would take a lot of time away from our home life, and that there'd be more pressure on him with a new baby coming in if I'm going to be working with an MBA and working full time. And so that's another piece I would say is having support at home. So having the support of if it's a friend, a family member, your spouse, whoever it is, making sure that they have your back, surrounding yourself with people who are going to lift you up. Before I even got into any of the programs, I can say that even just trying to get into the MBA program was obstacles. I didn't have as much management experience as many of the people who were in the program. And one of the schools I was looking to apply to said, well, you could apply. However, you'd probably feel like an apple in a room full of oranges. So it probably wouldn't be for you. And I was really discouraged, but I didn't let that hold me back. And I dug in and I found a program that was suitable for me and for my family. And so I completed my MBA while working, and partly while I was on maternity leave, which was challenging. And that's something I wish to go back to, but definitely something that has made a difference in my career. And then from there, there was actually a moment where I did have to leave Pfizer. So at the time, as I mentioned, it was Wyeth, and they merged with Pfizer. And part of a merger meant that they had to do some cuts. So while I was on maternity leave doing my MBA with my firstborn, my position was terminated, and they offered me a term position in quality assurance. And I was not comfortable taking a term knowing that I had a baby at home and was halfway through my MBA. So I made a decision to leave the company, and I went back to retail management for about 2 years. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. uh, definitely moments of adversity there that I can share with as well. But the message is, what that gave me is it allowed me to finish my MBA, gave me more management experience, and I came back to the company in a better position. So although it was a risk to leave here, knowing this was where I loved and I didn't want to be anywhere else, it was something that I had to do for my family. So I did that, and I came back, and I was offered a position in quality assurance, a permanent position this time, and I was working there for a while. And then again, as you can tell from my bio, which Rajani was reading out, I've done various positions at the site. So being a smaller site does provide more opportunity to try different areas and see what's going on and know more about our entire process. So I did go over. I applied on a job in technology. So I started working as a process specialist in the technology department, which again was a development opportunity for me. It was uncomfortable. I wasn't an engineer. I didn't know the manufacturing process well, and I had to learn quickly and get on my feet and really figure out what needed to be done. And my manager at the time, she is again another one of my mentors and people that sent me in the right direction. Lorna Washishin. And so she's our director for maintenance and safety and engineering here at the site. And so she was an advocate for me, and I learned a lot working in that department. And while I was there, is when I actually joined part of the women's organizing team for the women's mentoring program that Rajani was talking about, and where Rajani and I met. So it started off as a calendar appointment that popped up on my calendar, and I was actually a mentee for this program, and myself and my manager weren't really sure what it was about, but she had also been invited. And so the first time that we went to the face-to-face event, we got to meet, the PGS president at the time. It had some amazing guest speakers, and I met the amazing women on the organizing team who are still there today. Brooke Clark and Marsha Morley. Stephanie Watson were originally there, and Kelly later joined with us, and that opened up an amazing amount of opportunities for me. So when they were looking for somebody to be part of their organizing team, I raised my hand and I put together quite a unique email, which I could share with anybody if they're ever interested, because they still laugh about it to this day. But I wanted to make sure that they seen me and that I was recognized and I could be part of this amazing program, because what it allowed is for somebody like myself working as a process specialist in rural Manitoba, Canada, where nobody's ever heard of, to network with the rest of the Pfizer company and to connect with people, and to get to know what they do and to get recognized for what I'm doing, and just get on the radar. And I mean, honestly, I got to go to India, right? I got to go meet a bunch of amazing women there and speak there and share our story and our program with the women there. And so that has been a monumental part of my development, and the people that I lean on when I need support or advice, and just my opportunity to help pull other women up. So while I was doing that, I was in the program and I applied on the position that I'm in now as the QC manager. And this was the position when I first started the company that I had said to my boss, "How do I get your job?" And I'm here now. And that was how I did it. I had to zig and zag. It's not a corporate ladder. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to adapt to change, to accept defeat, because sometimes you're not going to win. To be resilient when those things come up, and that's really how I ended up where I am now. And I obviously have new ambitions now, new goals now that I've reached this point. But being a part of the women's organizing team in a mentoring program has definitely been a big part of my growth, and something that I feel I want to continue with even outside of the realm of Pfizer. So I'm really happy to be part of something like the program that you're running here, Rajani, and just being able to help the All Ladies League in any way that I can to support women who want to get into manufacturing.
Thank you, Michelle. So, Michelle, I'm so inspired already, because the kind of lessons that I learned and what I would like to reiterate from your story is as follows. First, as you said, speak up, which means you raise your voice, and not raise your voice as in raise your voice, but speak up and ask what you want to do or ask for an opportunity. And the second one is raise your hand. I think you've done it consistently. The problem is many of us, sometimes we find it extremely, what do I say, very embarrassing to put our hand up and say, yes, I would do that. Because we are not ready to face the challenges, or we may have our own internal drive issues. We may have our own, past experiences, which may stop us from putting our hand up and saying, please give me an opportunity, or I would like to take that opportunity. But in your story, that's something that I consistently saw coming up, because you said, I need it, I want it, I'm there, I will do it, I'll volunteer, I'll be part of organizing, because organizing is the toughest thing. Planning and organizing, these are the two skills I think comes, with a lot of responsibility and accountability along with that. And I think you were ready to put your hand up and say, I'm there and I would do that. And the third, something that I found very interesting is the kind of preparations you made to your journey. Uh, Whether it's preparing for your MBA, you were extremely focused. You were not deterred by any of those things that were coming, as an obstacle and putting you off. You were extremely focused and extremely goal driven, I would say. And the kind of preparations you wanted to do, and you were able to see, what would come up down the line, 2 years, 3 years down the line, where you want to see it yourself to be. It's just not having an MBA, but with that degree, what can I achieve in my life, and how I could grow in my career. So this is one, and you were throwing yourself to experience and to exploration, right? You were there. Yes, a company does offer you all these opportunities, but then how much are you able to make use of it, and how you threw yourself to this experience, and how you were open to take all this and grow with that. And you are where you are today, and you are our guest. And I'm very honored to have you once again on this, because there's such an inspirational story, Michelle. Because and another thing is, not many people get to see people like you. You know, you may call Brandon as a very small place in Canada, but then we have big people in small places, right? So you add a lot of you add a lot of value to the place or the location that you belong to. And today you not only made yourself proud, but also your family and the PGS, which is put up behind your seat, very proud, PGS proud. So Pfizer Global Supply, for those who don't understand what is PGS, something which is very close to my heart, my alma mater, I would say, in corporate, PGS. So yes, so with that, I would like to move a little further. Yesterday, the world celebrated International Men's Day. You know, uh, a lot of them, were thanking, and they said they were blessed to have a few women in their lives. So few men in their lives. I'm sorry, and of course, a lot of them, help us to move forward in our careers. And as you rightly said, you had an open conversation with your husband, and you were able to convince him and tell him that how you can make a difference, not only to yourself but also to your family. And so that he is an important man in your life. But apart from that, what do you think about this? The support system coming especially from the men in our families, and because women definitely will try to understand. And at least for me, I had my mom who took care of my son for very many years, and I really did not have a problem pursuing my education or my career, because my mom was there all the time with me, helping me out. And she said, you go there and do what you want to do, and don't forget that you have a baby at home, and I will be a second mom. And ultimately she became his first mom as well. I think, I became the second mom in the journey. So we all have support from the mother, because the mother will physically help out, and emotionally she's there, and all that. But the man in your family, maybe your father, your brothers, your husband, can you talk about the men in your family who have helped you to help you to achieve your goals?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, my My mother, very supportive, of course, there to help me, with the kids occasionally, but she definitely would not be the same as your mother. She was done raising her kids and had no interest in spending the majority of the time raising mine. Um, so I talked a little bit about my husband, and I would like to say that a little bit more because this is really important for people that are in a relationship and have maybe have children or don't have children. Having children does add that extra layer of responsibility on women, and I would like to say that no matter where you live in the world, I know there's different cultures and different ways that it works, but at the end of the day, I find the same story everywhere you go, and that is that women carry an unequal amount of the workload when it comes to the home. So when it comes to taking care of the home, and the meals and the cleaning, and even for myself, because I'm such a control freak, it's like the bills and the budgets, um, and then coming to work full time, and then still trying to invest in your children and your family and give them quality time, and it's exhausting, and your partners aren't going to step up and say, "Hey, I can do that for you. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to vacuum. I'm going to whatever it is that you need." If you don't ask, and I found I really had to have that conversation with my husband, and it's still a conversation we have to this day. There's times when I'll be exhausted after a full day of work, and he works full time too. But I found I would say things like, "Can you do me a favor? Can you do the laundry, or can you do me a favor? Can you help with the dishes this evening?" And I had to change my language because it's not a favor to me. I didn't dirty all those dishes, and that is definitely not all of my laundry. So not a favor. Can you do the laundry? Right. And he's not going to remember to do it. I still have to ask, but he'll do that. Um, and going back to even prior, when I was doing my MBA, it did take a lot on him as well. It was hard on our relationship because when I wasn't at work, I had my nose in front of my screen, and he would try to talk to me, even if it was just, "What do you want for dinner?" And I'm like, right, you're like busy, or to get just scowl. He said I just scowl over the back of my laptop. So, um, but he was definitely a huge advocate for it, and he came to my graduation, which was a few provinces over. It was about 12 hours away, to go for my graduation for the MBA, and he was there for me for that. So he's always been a huge supporter. He's probably watching this right now if he can, if the children aren't running around crazy right now. So having him in my life, and then my father has always been supportive of my career. Always, he didn't have a lot of hands-on involvement with my kids, but for moral support and just making me believe in myself, making me confident, giving me my
That's
sense
very
of
big.
humor. Yeah, my sense of humor, and just making me believe that I'm important and that I matter, and that I can be so much more. I was quite shy as a child, and I do think that having my father as a role model, and being so outgoing and caring and giving and compassionate and centered, really helped to bring out those qualities in me. So my father was a huge influence as well. Um, and so yeah, I would say that they were the biggest part of my life. And I had an older brother, Jason, who taught me how to take things less seriously. So he was always very laid back. I always said he was the opposite of me. You would think that he had no ambition. He worked part time at a job, spent most of his days just going for coffee. But he was content, and he was happy, and he was always smiling, and he was happy just purely existing. There was no corporate ladder he needed to climb. There was no stress that he felt he needed to overcome something, and he was just that laid back, kind of chill person in my life. So he just taught me how to find joy in the small things, and to just relax sometimes and not take myself so
Great.
seriously.
Great, Michelle. That's a nice story that you shared with us. So, Michelle, now turning a bit into manufacturing, you've been part of manufacturing side, making real-time drugs, medicines for treating certain conditions. Um, it's a very specialized area of manufacturing, and what do you think, when women enter into manufacturing, what do you think they should have as a personality or as a mindset when they come into manufacturing? Because manufacturing is a little more of physical work. It is not sitting in front of the computer or doing some IT kind of a job, but it is physical work, whether you're on the shop floor or whether you're in the lab or a QC lab or inside the line. You are physically doing a lot of work, which means your mental capacity should be at a different level. And so what is your take on this subject of women getting into manufacturing, and what should they do to stay strong mentally and physically, emotionally as well, and also what are some of the things that they should consider in their lives to get more successful in their careers in manufacturing?
Okay, so that's interesting because I was wondering how you were going to pose that question, and I never really thought about the difference with when you talked about like the physical differences between sitting and working in front of a screen all day versus the physical work that's required, as you pointed out, when working in a lab or in the manufacturing
So the
side.
thing is, when you look at a sterile manufacturing site like the IKKT or the Vizag sites in India, they are as such extremely physically demanding, because they need to put on those coats, and you don't even know whom you're talking to. They're fully covered. It's a sterile environment, and it expects a lot of quality precautions. So it's physically very tiring. So that's why I asked you this question.
Right, right. And so for that, it would be, I would say, even if it's manufacturing or any job that you're going to do that requires more physical strain, is just to ensure that you are practicing safe work practices and your ergonomics, and that you're not doing anything that you're not comfortable with. Workplace injuries cost the company money and they cost valuable people. So the biggest thing
Yeah,
is just safety and making sure that you are physically capable of doing the job that they're asking you to do, but also believing that you're physically capable of doing it. And I don't mean lifting 100-pound boxes, right? But when if it's something that you're just not familiar with, something a little bit different, a little bit outside your comfort zone. But if you need to do just that physically to be able to do that job, just knowing what your capabilities are and what your limitations are, but don't sell yourself short and think that it's something that you can't do because it's a physical
absolutely.
job. Yeah. And then mentally, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, it really comes down to if you're going to be in an industry where it is more male dominated, you need to, like I said, raise your hand and be resilient and take risks. Um, you can't be afraid of what they're going to say, what they're going to think. I tried in the past to adapt my personality, if you want to say, or my leadership style, to be uh, more softer so that I wouldn't come across as rude um and so I had a lot of like please and thank yous in my communications, and if you wouldn't mind, and I'm just asking because and then I had somebody who said, you need to be assertive, don't say, oh, I was just wondering if I could do this. Just say, I would like to do this. What do I need to be able to do this? Or I can help, and I know I can help, and this is what I can bring to the table. And so being able to do that, but I did try altering that part of me to a point where I was being very concise and direct in my communications. And then I got the backlash of that. I did get the pushback. We didn't like having Michelle. She was too bossy. I thought her email was rude. I'm like, it wasn't rude. It was one sentence with a period at the end of it, and I just didn't, put a big fat please and thank you in there. So um, it has been a bit of a balance. You have to, you can still be polite and courteous in your communications while still being assertive. But you can't be afraid that voice that tells all of us you're not maybe good enough. You don't have the qualifications. You don't have the experience. That's not something that women normally do. You have to push that voice aside, because I'm telling you right now, it isn't always the men that are doing that. We are doing it to ourselves, and women are doing it to other women, and that's what needs to stop. You need to silence that voice, and then really find people who are going to help pull you up. So um, there are people all over the world and all over industries in different positions, through networks such as this, that are willing to pull you up, and help you and want to see women succeed in manufacturing specifically. But you need to be reaching for them, because if you're not reaching, they have nothing to hang on to. So if your hand's not there and you're not telling them what you want, don't expect somebody to passively pull you along.
Sure. So I liked what you said about don't sell yourself short. You know, can you throw some light on that? Because as far as our culture is concerned, we Asians, especially when we get an opportunity, we are only looking at the opportunity and we are not looking at the other elements of that opportunity. So when we don't look at the other elements of the opportunity, we are just looking at this big thing standing in front of us, and I say, okay, this has come my way and I shouldn't lose this, and I go and cling on to it, and in the process I sell myself short. I hope you get what I'm saying, because it's a bit of in a jiffy to make it to that opportunity. I forget the rest of the things and I sell myself short. So, and that can have a big impact throughout my life, whether economically speaking, or more from a emotional angle, or from a social perspective. It could hit me hard throughout my life. But many times what happens is we don't pay too much attention to that, and we just are looking for opportunities and to grab them. So, and sometimes it could also lead to failure. So that's why I'm asking you, what do you do to prevent this?
So having, if you want to call them mentors or a support group or a network, is a big part of it. A perfect example, um, uh, even just coming here to have this conversation today. um, I'll be perfectly honest, Rajani, when you first asked, I thought I was just going to be like a part of something. I didn't know that I would be doing the majority of this speaking. So I actually reached out to my organizing team and to Brooke, and was like, oh my goodness, like I have this opportunity, but I'm not too sure that I'm going to give them what they need to hear, like what I have to say. And so that was my self-doubt. And she said, no, like you got this, there's a reason you were asked, and you have a story to tell. Um, and she just really built me up, and gave me that encouragement. So I have those networks, and I still have those doubts, and it happens. And if it comes to
Wow.
like an opportunity, particularly, if you want a specific example, I'll go back to when I was taking on the job in technology. Again, I came from a quality background, did some retail management. I knew nothing about engineering, the manufacturing process. Even walking back there, I didn't know what the equipment was, where I was. And so I had to dig in and think, well, what does the job need? The job needs somebody who can be a technical writer, and who can write protocols and can write position papers. And I do that, and I can do that well. I'm good with writing, right? So this is something I'm strong at, and I just need to be able to communicate with the engineers, and communicate with the people involved, and get the information I need, because they hired me knowing that I'm not an engineer. They hired me knowing that that's not my background, and so that obviously wasn't what they were looking for. They were looking for somebody who could be organized, communicate well, get the papers written, a well-written documentation, that was going to ensure that when they were executing the protocol, that all aspects were covered, including, the safety of the people, the quality of the work that was going to put it out, and that it was going to be done well. So it really kind of gave me more of an opportunity to be more like a project manager, if you want, because you were working with different departments. And I just had to really push down that feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what this is about. Um, and and um, and it really comes down to yourself and being confident. And if you're not confident, then faking that you're confident until you get there. Because again, we hold ourselves back more than anyone else is going to hold us back. Um, and then when it comes to just a point we made earlier, Rajani, about raising your hand, and you're saying that, a lot of times, um, you know women feel like they can't raise their hand for particular things. When I say raise your hand, I'm talking even if you're in a meeting with a group of people and you raise your hand. I don't mean raise your hand to take minutes. I mean like raise your hand to run the meeting, right? I can run the meeting today, you know. I can go through the agenda, and so you get your voice out there, you get your face out there, and then they can hear you and see you, and people will remember you more than if you just volunteered to take the minutes for the meeting.
Sure, that's great. And I'm quite intrigued by one thing that I would like to ask you is what kind of a role does the culture play, culture of Canada play in manufacturing? You know, for women in manufacturing, does it have an impact? What does the
I
culture say about it?
I think so. I definitely would say so. Canada, obvious. I don't know if it's obvious or not, but Canada, quite a liberal country about equality. And so there's a lot of parts that where if there is any sort of, you know, like where the gender parity exists, it's um, not intentional, at least where we are now. I know at my site, there are a lot of amazing female leaders at the site. I would say it's pretty much equal between female leaders and male leaders at this site. So
Mhm.
I had a lot of role models. I could see where I want to be and that I could do that position because there was already a woman in that position, and a woman that everybody listened to. You know, I mean, our manager for the quality assurance department for the past couple, or for as long as I can remember, has been a woman, and the buck stops with them, right? And these are women who, the one has been on 3 separate maternity leaves,
Mhm.
um, and our maternity leaves in Canada aren't short. Like you get 12 months off with your baby. So that's 3 years she's been out of the workforce, and it hasn't held her back from promotions and moving up with organizations. So
Wow,
um,
that's great.
yeah, so I would, and she, I mean, and again, she's got the skills and the abilities to back that up, right? She's proven herself enough of an asset that they're willing to backfill for a year, so when she comes back, she can come back, you know, guns blazing. So, she's pretty inspiring in that way. But I would say that it's more of an accepted culture here to have women in leadership in manufacturing. I would say here where we are lacking, and it's not intentional. I think it's just over time in the actual manufacturing side. It is at the moment all men there. We did have one woman a few years ago, but she retired. So it tends to be more um, men in the actual production side. But in the lab, I would say it's equal women and men in the lab.
Great. That's such a nice and a powerful story, isn't it? Just look at the kind of trust they have on this lady, and they are looking at her as a talent that they want to invest for a long time. That's a great policy, I think, as a company and as a country that you are able to provide for the women. And I hope many other countries are able to follow this because in India we have about 6 months and an extended period of another 3 months. But mostly women get back in about 3 to 4 months because they have a pressure to get back. Even if organizations are supportive, women have their own stories and their past experiences in their mind, which compels them to leave the baby and get back to work because they are very worried about whether the jobs will be retained and will there be a replacement. And so there's a lot of insecurity around that. So it's not very positive. It's not very encouraging. Some companies are, yeah.
I was going to say something that might help women who are maybe in that position and feel that way. Again, depending on who your manager is or who your support network is at
Absolutely.
the time. But with so you're pregnant and you're going to go on maternity leave. Um, so for that extended period of time, you're not available to the company, and they are going to have somebody backfilling doing your job for you for a while, or however they just choose to cover that. But it would be about having a really strong development plan in place. So saying to your manager, look, I'm going to be off for the next 6 to 9 months with my baby. When I come back, I want to hit the ground running. This is my development plan. This is where I want to start. This is where I can be an asset to you the minute I get back. And this is where I want to develop. And I've already, maybe lined up connections with another department or another person who's going to help you get to where you need to get to. But just telling them that, yeah, I'm taking this time, but I have a plan when I come back, and my head will be in the game, and I am an asset to your company, and sell yourself, and just show that.
So I think this is also the culture of Pfizer to some extent, because if you remember, we had a Meena who was the personal assistant to the site leader, and she had planned a maternity. And it was beautifully planned because we had a backfill, and then for that backfill also we had a good career planning. Once the original person gets back, what happens to this backfill, and then we were able to plan her career as well. I think it a lot to do with the culture, the company that you're working for, and also the leader's mindset, which really matters. So that's a great take, and I think you've told a very powerful story at the culture bit also, Michelle. I think that will carry forward, and I hope a lot of people who are listening to this are able to get back to their management and say, "This is what is happening, around the place," and I think we should follow some good practices as well. So with that, I would like to move to the final question, Michelle. Is then we'll throw open the stage for a few questions if they're coming in, and I want you to tell the women who are passionate about getting into manufacturing about some don'ts. What are the don'ts? The real strict don'ts, because many times we learn our lessons and then the failure hits us hard. So what are the don'ts? And the second part of the question is, what are some of the and I won't call it what are some of the failures, but how do you manage to overcome failures, and how do you manage, and what gives you that resilience to get back and start running with your goals forward?
Okay,
These are
absolutely.
these are the this is a two-part question actually.
Um, so the don'ts are, don't complain without a solution to the problem. Don't pass blame to others for something that you're accountable for. So when you're working in manufacturing, any sort of supply, especially when it comes to pharmaceuticals, there is a lot of pressure to get the medicines made and to get them tested, and have quality, safe products get out the door. But you still have a responsibility to get them to your customers and the patients who are needing them. And so with that does come a lot of pressure. And especially when it comes to being on the quality control side of things, we really are more like um, a support to the company, to getting those medicines out the door. And so there's oftentimes when you feel a lot of pressure, and if you start buckling under that pressure and whining, and, oh, it's too much work, and I'm tired, and I can't do it, and we can't do it, and why are they giving us so much work, and why does the company keep pushing this, and it really creates a lot of negativity, and it shows that you don't understand the business and you're not supporting your company. And so it's don't whine about it, but at the same time, speak your voice. So um, it's about going to your manager and saying, "Hey, look, you have me scheduled for 9 hours of work today. This isn't achievable. I won't be able to get 9 hours of work done today, or this in the week, or whatever you have scheduled." And then saying, "How about if I take on this task for this person, they could help me, and then we could get it done. Or I can't get it all done today, but I could wrap it up by Wednesday, and it would still meet our target for Thursday. Is that acceptable?" And so just really coming forward with a plan of what's going to help, rather than complaining about it. Because it can be a lot of pressure working in manufacturing, and there are days where you feel like you're going under, but you just have to stop, take a breath, ensure that your well-being is intact, and then maintain that. So it doesn't mean saying yes to everything, and collapsing under the pressure. Sometimes what, things just have to get done. But it's about focusing on what the critical things are, and then really talking to your leader about what are the things that can wait. And so I find that makes a big difference. And then they feel, leaders see that you understand the business, that you're respecting the quality of the business and the criticality of the work that needs to get done, but you're also protecting yourself and the integrity of the work that gets done, because exhausted employees aren't going to put out the best quality of work. And then the second part of your question about goals, and overcoming lack of better words, disappointment. That there's been so many times throughout my career where I've applied on maybe a position that I didn't get. Sometimes positions that I was sure I was going to get. I was so confident that it was for me that when I didn't get it, it felt like a punch to the gut. But again, it comes down to being resilient in your mindset and thinking, okay, so that position wasn't for me yet. And a perfect example is a position I'm in now. I did apply on this position previously and didn't get it. And the person who was the lead investigator at the time had got the job. My manager said I just needed more experience. And so I was like, okay. And then so then the lead investigator job came up and I applied on that and I didn't get that one either. And I was just super frustrated with it. But that's when I was like, okay, if I need more experience, that's when I dug in and started, looking at my MBA. But it doesn't always have to be something as big as going and get, your master's in business. It can be um, about just looking at what, that opportunity may have closed, or you might feel disappointed or be feeling a little bit bad about yourselves. By all means, take a, day or two to lick your wounds. But you just got to pick yourself up and get over it, because wallowing in it isn't going to get you anywhere. And it isn't, always like the strongest that survive, or the smartest that survive. It's the ones that are most adaptable to change. So you just have to be willing to look at it as an opportunity to grow, and to look at yourself and see what you need to do differently, and if there's something you maybe need to add into your mindset or your career that's going to help you.
Great. Uh, what a beautiful way of sharing your experience, Michelle. I'm so impressed. I was already impressed, and now I'm super impressed with your story, your advice, your suggestions, and small things, but has big value. Each of them have a very, very large value attached to that. And anything you want to leave us with, uh, last two words that you want to leave us with.
Um, just to value yourself, know your worth.
Great. Fantastic, Michelle. And thank you for being there for today's fireside chat conversation. Because, the last 4 or 5 programs that we've done, we've got good, strong women who can share their true feelings towards their passion, their inspiration, and what the kind of messages that they gave are still lingering in my ears. Very powerful, and you've added so beautifully to that list of the most powerful women we've had on the Fireside Chat series. And thank you for being there, and thank you for accepting our invitation, and the simple, the beautiful conversation that you had with us. I think it's going to be there with us for a very, very long time. And any questions from anyone? Okay. So, anything that you want to look up on the YouTube? There are no questions. Okay. So I don't think we have any questions as of now, Michelle. And thank you so much. Uh, and I look forward to meeting you once again. I'll try and create something that we can get the entire PGS Women Network to do a session. Maybe after a month or so, I'll find out about the availability of the other leaders as well, and see whether we could convene another meeting like this, so we get to hear more powerful stories from each one of you. Thank you once again, and thank you on behalf of All Ladies League and my other colleagues in this forum. Priyanka, Preeti, and Sri. Thank you, and have a great yes, stay safe.
Thank you, Rajani, for this amazing opportunity. Happy to be here, and thank you.
Yeah, I think there was a small computer issue, and then I was not there for some time, for a minute or so. Yeah, yeah, Michelle. So I really look forward to meeting you again, Michelle. Thank you very much.
You too, Rajani. Thank you so much. It was so lovely to see you again. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. We'll see whether there's another opportunity to get you to India to have some
Yes,
more masala
absolutely.
dosas.
I'm in anytime.
Okay, bye bye, Michelle. Take
Take
care.
care. Thank you.